Alright, what's up guys? I am back today for another photographic tutorial. Today we're specifically going to be talking about sequence photographs. Now I'll go over how to shoot them, how to edit them, and how to export them in post-production. Before I get into that, I just want to quickly talk about the application that you're looking at now. This is specifically Adobe Lightroom 3. Now, Lightroom is, I guess, Adobe's play on words when it comes back into the darkroom. Now, everybody knows the old film photographers that have to grab their negatives after they shot, take them into the darkroom, and do all their processing there. Now, everybody knows we're in the digital age, so this is Adobe's digital darkroom, I guess you could call it. Pretty cool. Everybody knows Adobe. They are pretty much the giants and leaders in any kind of creative software. They've owned and designed obviously Lightroom, Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, Fireworks. I mean, you name it, and Adobe have done it in their creative program side. So I mean, they're absolutely huge. They're up there with Windows and Mac, and you know, they are big players in the program world. This is specifically designed for photographers. I mean, too many people are out there saying, oh, I've got an image and I need to turn it black and white, I must get Photoshop. You don't need that. A lot of people don't even know that, you know, the stock programs that come with your computer, whether it be, you know, Windows Preview or Mac iPhoto, they can do a lot of the effects that you need. But this is built for, you know, a lot of photos go through this. As you can see, I've got all my work in here. You know, I've got product stuff, weddings, conferences, scooters, BMX, all kinds of stuff. And the way it is designed is it's ready to handle a hell of a lot of photos that go through it. That's the way it's designed. And I can pretty much shoot an entire job, edit it in here, do everything I need, make it look as good as I possibly can, and then export it. A lot of the times I don't even need to go over into Photoshop. The good thing being that it is Adobe, it's bridged directly with Photoshop that you'll see in this episode. I'll be going straight from here straight into Photoshop, so that's awesome. But yeah, I'd recommend getting this if you're a photographer and you're not into heavy editing. So this is exactly what you need. It's got a lot of cool things, like, you know, it's got really accurate lens distortion corrections, and it's got all kinds of stuff. It comes with a bunch of presets if you want to do some funky filters. So I'd recommend having a look at this. The latest one is Adobe Lightroom 3. Lightroom 4 is coming out pretty soon, I think, so I'm curious to see what's going to be in that. But yeah, look, anyway, let's move over into today's topic. So specifically, we're going to be talking about sequence photography. Now, this is a friend of mine. He is a great BMX rider, and I've decided to use him for this tutorial today. He's helped me out with a bunch of photos before, so yeah, really appreciative for that. His name's Adam Till. He's a top BMX rider. People know him as Tilly. So yeah, thanks to Adam. Anyway, look, a sequence photograph is initially what you see here, but this is only one part. This is all the split photographs. And what we're going to do is we're going to merge it into one photograph. So there'll be, you know, there's going to be 7 or 8 or 9 Tillies in one photo. Now you see that a lot in, you know, sports magazines, BMX, scooter, skate, FMX. It can be in diving magazines. You see a lot of that when they're doing all kinds of, you know, acrobatic spins in the air. So it's a really cool thing because it gives you the sense of movement and it gives you the sense of direction to what's actually happening in the photo. There are other sequence photographs where they take each separate image and they print them next to each other. I don't like that because it can get a little bit messy as to what you're doing. Now, before you start doing any of this, the first thing you need to do when you're shooting is be on a tripod, because otherwise the background is going to change. If you're hand holding it and shooting it, you need the background to be the exact same, because you're just going to use, when you're in post-production, you're going to use one slate or one plate as the background, and then all the other images are going to be laid over the top of that one background. Second thing is your camera needs to shoot at a decent frame rate. Now, one of the best cameras for sports at the moment in Canon is probably the EOS 1D Mark III or 4, mainly because of its frame rate, and specifically on Nikon is what I shoot on, is the Nikon D3S, mainly because it's 9 frames a second, or when you put it into DX crop it's 11, so that's really quick. Now that is perfect for capturing this kind of movement. One of the worst cameras for sports photography is the Canon 5D Mark II. Now that camera is amazing and I would never diss it for anything else but sports, mainly because it's got a 3.9 frame rate in shooting. The video side of that is untouchable. Now, that's where Canon really excels. Anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's continue. So what you can see here is 16 images of Tilly flying through the air over the ledge onto the grass. Now, what we're going to do is, this has actually been edited in Lightroom. So I've done some minor adjustments. I've pulled up the saturation. I've done some recovery for the sky, and I've also pulled the saturation up a little bit, as I said. Now, this was shot on a 14mm lens. I also did a slight bit of lens correction. Now, I won't go into that side of it. I'll do another video on all the things that Lightroom can do. But this has had a little bit of lens correction done to it, because shooting on a 14mm lens can sometimes make things that are meant to be straight look off axis or look a little bit bent. So you get that a lot when you're shooting houses or any sort of architectural stuff. But anyway, so as you can see, these little plus signs down here means that some sort of adjustment has been made. Now, this shot, this has been, so as I said, 16 photographs. It's been shot at 1/8000th of a second at 27mm ISO 640 at f2.8. Now, I probably should have been shooting at about, I was in the middle of the day, I probably should have been shooting at about f8 or f9. But doesn't really matter. Reason for that is it's a little bit out of focus here, and it's a little bit out of focus here. If I was shooting at f10, then I would have been sweet from edge to edge. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This is just an example. So what I'm going to do is shift click every single one of these photos, right click, and then go to export. Now, the cool thing, actually no, sorry, I'm not going to get export. I'm lying. I'm going to go to edit in. Now, the cool thing is, being that this is an Adobe program, you can bridge or transfer directly into Photoshop. Now, that's awesome. What I don't want to go edit in Adobe Photoshop CS5. I want to go open as layers in Photoshop, and that's going to default open up in CS5. But what it's going to do is, instead of opening 16 separate images in Photoshop, it's going to open up one document with 16 layers. Now, I'll explain exactly what that is in a minute as soon as it does it. This version of Lightroom may require the Photoshop Camera Raw plugin. I don't care. Open anyway. I didn't ask for that. So yeah. So I'm now bridging over into Photoshop CS5, and it's going to do its thing. These are all raw files, so they're quite large. They're about 16 megabytes each. So I'll give it a second to do its thing, because I don't want to start clicking away because it'll probably freeze. But yeah, look, the final result is going to be about 9 or 10 Tillys in the same photograph. So this has been a tutorial that's been requested quite a lot, because I do quite a few of these, because I've got a lot of friends that are into scooter riding and BMX and skating. So you know, it is a really cool and fun thing to do. You just need to make sure that you set it up correctly from the beginning. That's shooting on a tripod, that's shooting at f10 if possible, to making sure that you've got a really good depth of field. And then having the right knowledge to do it. So that's what I'm going to help out in this video. It took me a while to get everything right, but you know, it's a cool thing to do. I've actually had this image printed out on. I've had a final one before, but yeah, look, it'll be cool. So anyway, here we've got one photograph here. Actually, I'll pull my layers panel into the window. So what you can see is all these separate images here. So I'll turn the visibility off on each one, and you can see Tilly soaring across the air just like that. Now, what I need to do is delete certain images, because I've shot this entire sequence at 9 frames a second. I've gotten 16 photographs, but I don't initially need 16 photographs because he's actually too close. One thing that's really good to abide by when you're shooting sequence stuff is make sure that they're traveling a distance. You don't want to shoot 7, 8, 9 photographs of somebody that moves 2 steps to the left or 2 steps to the right, because you're not going to have a gap between them to lay them into the next section of the photograph. They're going to be overlaying. You can overlay them, and I've seen that a lot, and it does look cool, but in this situation, he's too close to himself in each image, so I need to delete pretty much every second image so I've got a nice gap. So what I'll do is, okay, so I need this first image, so what I'm going to do is click and hit delete on the second image. So now the gap is a little bit bigger, so you can see the difference in the gap. Now the exact same. I don't need this second image here, so I can go ahead and delete that. So what I'll do is I'll go through every second image and delete it. And now you can see that is a much, and I don't actually need that last one. Now, as you can see, that's a much better gap. You can see he has some distance between each one. That's going to give me, firstly, it's going to save me time when I go to make a selection around him and remove the background. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is start removing the background from each image to be able to see through to the next writer. The writer's the same person, but we want to see through to the next image. All I need to do is zoom in, pan over to the start of the photograph. Now all I did there on Mac, I hit Command plus to zoom in. On Windows it's Control plus. And when I want to move around, when I'm zoomed into the image, I hold down the spacebar and this little hand will pop up like that. And that means I can move around the image if I need to start doing some closer work. So all I need to do in this image is, this is actually a very easy example because I just need to make a rough selection around him using the lasso tool. So you hit L to get the lasso tool. Then you click and you drag around your subject, making sure that you don't touch him. Make a selection like that, back to the start, and there you go. What you've got here is called the marching ants, or the selection. Now then you can zoom out, and all you need to do is, in this situation, I'm not gonna start making layer masks so I can go and preserve it. I'm gonna be destructive on this image. Now what destructive means is that you delete, and then later on down the track, if you want to get it back, you can't. Now, a lot of people, usually if I was doing this for a proper job, I would make a layer mask. Now what that means is I'd kind of duplicate it and make a mask around him, so if I needed to get that information back later, say for instance I deleted some of the wheel and I didn't see it until the end, if I made a layer mask, that would be working non-destructively because I'm not deleting information out of the image. Now that you can see that this section is done, what I need to do is start deleting information. But if I hit delete right now, there you go, Tilly's gone. Now what happened there? What I did was I deleted the wrong section of the image. I deleted all the information that's on the inside here. And what's happening is he's gone completely, but because I shot on a tripod and the scene hasn't moved, I'm falling into the back of this image here. So I'm falling onto the second image down. Now what I need to do is hit Command Z, or on Windows it's Control Z to undo that, and now I need to hit Command Shift and I. Now what that does is that inverses the selection. What that means is, as you can see, he's selected, but also the very edge is selected as well. So I'm going to be deleting everything on the outside of Tilly. So Tilly's going to be sweet and everything on the outside of him is going to be gone. But yeah, well that's exactly what you need to do here, because as you saw before, I deleted the internal stuff, and that's what you can't do. So that was Command Shift I for Mac, and it's going to be Control Shift I on Windows. Now if I hit delete, there you go, Tilly's rocked up in this image. But what you can see is right up the top corner here, that top image, that entire area now looks like a checkers board, except for just the left. This is YouTube, I know it compresses the quality, so I hope you can see it. On the left hand corner of this layer there is a little small section. The rest of it is the checkers. Now what checkers means is that's transparent, so you can see directly through it. Now that's stage 1 done. Basically all we need to do now is the exact same process for every single other photograph. But what we need to do before we move on to the next photograph is make sure that that image is selected. Otherwise we're going to be trying to delete data on the top image, and that's already been gone. So there we go, we zoom in, hold shift and space, hold the space bar down to move around, the little hand will come up. Got the lasso tool still, the lasso tool still, talking like a retard. Make a selection around Tilly. There we go. Oop, and you see I screwed that up. I'm going to be cutting off a little bit of his crank arm. So we'll do that again. Lasso tool. All the way around. It's good to get as close as you possibly can. Especially if you're working destructively, because you're throwing that information away. And if you need it back, you have to go back on your history palette. Which means if you're almost finished and you need to go and get something back, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Now again, I can zoom out by hitting Command minus on Mac or Control minus on Windows. Again, you can see the marching ants, or the selection tool, is around him. Again, I need to make sure that I've selected the inverse. So there is another way you can do that. I usually I work in keyboard shortcuts because that's fastest possible way to do anything in Photoshop, being that it's such a giant program. There is another way you can do it. You can go to select and inverse. Now the exact same thing's going to happen. All the ants are going to be on the outside. Now when I hit delete, there we go. Another Tilly's rocked up. But as you can see, I've only just cleared that image. Now if those ants were on this side of, if they were touching his wheel, then we'd have serious issues because there would be a bit of his wheel missing. But luckily we've cleared that one. So I'll deselect that, move on to the next photograph. So there we go. Make sure we go down to the next layer and we can zoom in again. We've still got the lasso tool. Hold spacebar to move around, zoom out just a tiny bit. Get the lasso tool, start making the selection. Again, try and get as close as you possibly can. There is another way you can do it. You can use the pen tool, which makes quite better accuracy when it comes to selection. But in this situation, we can just use the lasso tool. I'll explain the pen tool in another episode, because that's when you're doing very fine adjustments and very fine cutouts, or deep etching as it's also called. Okay, again, I want that section to be, I'm on the right photograph. I need to go to select, inverse, and hit delete. And here we go. We have an issue here. Now what you can see is I'll zoom right in. Now this photograph, there is a problem. Because in this layer, he's behind this photograph. So this photograph here still has, there is directly behind this information here is going to be his wheel. So all I need to do is go over, or I can hit E, keyboard E for the eraser tool. I want to right click and I want to get a hard brush. Now these are the soft brushes, these are the hard brushes. I want to bring the size down a little bit, so I bring it to about 40. And what I can do is start erasing. But I've got to be careful, because if I go too far, whoop, there goes the front part of the other wheel. So I'll undo that. I'll start erasing and I'll get as close as I possibly can. But the problem's going to be is I can't erase anymore, because those photographs that were lined up, Tilly's wheel is behind this. So in this situation, there's nothing I can really do about it. But it's not too bad, because at the moment I'm zoomed into 400%. Nobody looks at a photograph at that scale anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, look, I'll erase to the edge of his wheel as much as I can. This is just a rough job. Usually I'll be using the pen tool, which is, as I said before, gives you a much better selection. Anyway, doesn't matter. I can zoom out, and as you see, his wheel is overlapping by just a little bit, but because I'm zoomed out to 100%, you can't even really see it, so it's not a big deal. But if half of his bike was over the top of him, then you'd have a hell of a time trying to erase all of it. Alright, anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll move on to the next photograph, but that was a good example. So we'll zoom in again, Command plus on Mac, Control plus on Windows, hit the L for the lasso tool, and I'll start at the back wheel, moving around. Now because I'm on the layer underneath, his front wheel on the image to the left is not going to be affected, because I'm basically just deleting the inverse background on each one, and I'm using, at the end of it, I'll be using the last photograph for the entire background. Now again, I hit select, inverse, and we'll see if I come with a problem on this one. There might be enough gap between each rider. There you go. See, that's perfect. There's not a gap at all. Therefore, the background blends in perfectly, and there's nothing that I really need to do at all. I mean, the sky looks perfect. There's no obvious cutouts that I need to go ahead and start doing some work on. Yeah, so I can move straight on to the next image. Again, making sure we click on the right image. Got the lasso tool. I've started his front wheel. Get as close as I can to the front without going onto it. We'll go up, over his head, right to the back, under the back wheel, and to the wheel. Now again, select, inverse, delete. There we go, no problem again. Because there was enough gap, remember right at the start I deleted all those images, there'd be another bike rider right in the middle here, and there's no way that I'd be able to take that out. That would just be too difficult, because there's all this green in the background, and there's all this sky, and there's all the bike. You could do it, but you'd be here for hours and hours and hours doing every single image, and you don't want that. That you want to leave a gap and then just delete the information. Alright, starting to pick up pace here. We'll do the same thing. Select the right image, use the lasso tool. Remember, that's L on the keyboard. all the way up to his head, all the way down. Oh, stuffed it up. Start again, trying to go too quickly. Again, you can always spend as much time on this as possible, get as close as you can, and that way you're going to get a better result all the way down. And another thing I'd encourage starting to learn is keyboard shortcuts, because that's going to save you so much time in Photoshop, because the program is just so large that if you went to file for everything, then you'd have a problem. Again, we've come up with this problem. All we need to do is go down, hit E for the erase tool. Again, I'd usually be working with masks because I'm working destructive for this, just for the sake of the video, because it's time consuming. I'll go ahead and delete as close as I can to that wheel. I'll go right in. As soon as you get to 600%, you get a grid. I tend to leave that on because it can sometimes really help when you're doing fine work if you're using a softer brush. But in this situation, it's not the best. But you know what? Doesn't matter. I'll go over it quickly just to get rid of that information. When you zoomed out, you can't really tell anyway. If you were going to print this or do anything like that, I'd recommend doing it perfect and getting as much detail as you can. And lastly, we are basically on the last image. Now, lasso tool, select around the glass, not the glass, the grass. Well, it's Macquarie Fields, there's probably glass there. Up to the head, around, you see I screwed it up. I'll do it again, come on, don't meck about. All the way to the head, down. Again, you'd be doing this a lot better than I am because I'm rushing. Remember, up to select and inverse, that's Control-Shift-I on Windows and Command-Shift-I on Mac. Delete. And here we have a bigger issue, mainly because this rider has come into the photograph. Now, there's a way that we can get around that, and we can leave a gap there, but the problem is, we want another person to be there, because all these guys are so close, we want that last image to be there. So what we need to do is quickly go in and do the exact same thing as we've been doing. With the eraser, but just be as precise as possible. Erase that just up to the wheel. Now all we're doing is removing information and moving through to the background. Now, because Photoshop is a layered built program, you can have 1,000 different layers. That's what it's doing. It's seeing through to another layer. Because we shot on a tripod, it's the exact same scene, but there's just another rider in it. So if you've ever wondered how they do it in magazines, how they get so many people, this is exactly how they've done it. It's a very common thing now, and it's actually quite easy. What I'd probably need to do here is, because it looks like his wheel's going to disappear, is I need to move into here and start. There you go. You see the detail of the wheel is in there as well. But you see, this one is a bit harder. You have to be a bit more precise, but there you go, it's better to have the wheel there. But there goes some of his peg, so I'll undo that. Anyway, you guys get the idea. So when you zoom back out, there you go, that's your photograph. So that's now gone from 16 down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 photographs. So we've halved it completely. I could have done that in camera, but I'd prefer to have the information and throw it away later. I'd prefer to have the extra photographs and throw them away when I don't need them, rather than them not being there and be a huge unordinary gap. Anyway, we'll recap. We started off in Lightroom. I made all my adjustments here. What I'll do is I'll show you quickly. That's what the image was like before. When I go to reset, that's what it's like. It's a bit darker, and there's only a slight amount of distortion that came back. So we've gone from Adobe Lightroom 3, we've exported 16 files, we've moved into Photoshop, we've exported them into layers instead of separate documents. We've then deleted 8 photographs that we didn't need because of the space. We've then gone ahead and made a selection around each of the riders, deleted the inverse for every single one and gotten to the end. There you go, end up with a final image. What I'd be doing now is, because there's too much sky room, just to finalize it and finish it off, I'd be cropping. I shot wide intentionally because I prefer to crop later on in photos like this because you can frame it exactly how you want. It's better to have a lot more sky room and headroom than trying to get it perfect within the lens at the start, you know, within the camera. In this situation, a lot of the time it is good to get in the camera, but in this situation, it's easy enough to crop. And there you go. That's the... Sorry, it's just loading. That's all of them cropped. Now what you can do is, if you wanted all of those layers to become one, what you need to do is flatten them or merge them. So you hit Command E on Mac, or you hit Control E, and what that does is that'll merge all of the layers. You can then go to File, Save As. You can save it as a TIFF or a Photoshop document. So, or actually, if you merge it and then save it as a Photoshop document, you're going to lose all your layers either way. Anyway, you can save it as any one of these formats. Doesn't matter. I won't go into formats at the moment. Or you can take it back into Lightroom and do more adjustments or whatever. Either way, this is one of the easiest ways to do it. Is to make sure the separation between all the writers and then do exactly what I just showed you. I'll go and film a video very soon. I'll get a BMX rider or a scooter rider to do something like this, and I'll show you how to photograph it. I'll tell you the settings, and then I'll relate that and I'll link that back to this video. Anyway guys, my name's Phil Lagettie. I am happy to say this is the end. I know it's been a long video, but a lot of you guys have requested it, so I hope I've helped. Yeah, if you guys have any requests or any comments, let me know. Contact me at phil.lagettie@palmedia.com.au. Check out my website, that's palmedia.com.au, or leave a comment just below. I'd really appreciate it. Alright, thanks guys. Good night. Or good afternoon, good day, whatever time it is in the world you're watching this.